So I think the first point is we've always had a feeling that we'd rather the business fail than that we didn't have a good relationship.
Yeah.
And so with three of us taking sides on the merits of the decision rather than any sort of familiar or friendship bonds, that's been really powerful, because two of us can be really arguing vehemently, and if it gets a bit hot, you can go and have a moan to the other one. God, he's such a dick, and the other one goes, no, he's all right, he's just seeing it from this point of view, and it sort of cools it down.
Yeah. Hi everybody, and welcome to FEBE Fan Stories, and it's absolutely fantastic to have Fraser Smeaton from Morph Costumes today. How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you, and thank you for having me.
I'm slightly disappointed you've not come all morphed up. What's happening?
Well, we've been in this business for 14 years now, so we leave that to the younger members of the team.
Do you get a bit bored? I bet people say that all the time, don't they?
People do ask that.
Yeah, okay, yeah. As I said it, I thought, come on, John, be original. I bet it's always Fraser, have you come and you're more...
It's what we do, so we've got to live the brand. Not as much as we used to.
But the reason why I do say that is because I remember you stole the show at an awards night quite a few years ago, a very prestigious awards night, and you did all come in black tie morphs and morph suits, and it's just not... It's not the kind of thing that you would have expected. It's not, but you stole the show, and you had all eyes on it. But anyway, that's why it's so cool to have you here, because I remember you guys from that awards night. So it's great that you're in the Growth 100 this year. So huge congratulations.
Thank you very much. We're really excited.
I mean, let's start right at the beginning. Why morph suits?
So why MorphSuits? Well, that is a very good question, because it's not something that pops into your head if you're looking to start a business. So myself and my two founders, one brother and one good friend, we had been trying...
So that's Ali and Gregor.
It's Ali and Gregor, yeah. We'd been trying some side hustles before they were called side hustles back through the noughties, and the first two hadn't really worked. But we'd been on a boys' weekend, and someone had found one of these spandex suits on eBay and had worn it, and literally 100 people took their photo. People stopped watching street theatre, and 20 people asked us where to buy them. And we were like, we've worn a lot of fancy dress in the past. We've never had a reaction like this. And so we then wore it.
Really? So it really took you back?
Unbelievable. We're in Dublin, and we walked past street theatre.
In Dublin, where like everyone is
absolutely,
dressing up,
yeah, loads of stag do's there, and we walked past the street theatre, and everyone stopped watching whatever was going on and turned around and looked at this thing. And so we were like, this is amazing. And at that time, we weren't thinking about it as a business, but we wore it on a couple more stag do's events. Every time, every country, same reaction. So when our other side hustle ideas were struggling, we were walking home one night and having worn the suits again, and we're like, let's just give up on these things that aren't working. Let's see if we can sell these. And so that we started trying to sell morph suits, and it went very well and started us on this journey.
So, I mean, let's break that down. You're on a night out, people are taking notice, you put the side hustles to bed, then you focus on this.
But we focused on this as a side hustle. We all had corporate jobs.
So still, right,
so
okay.
Ali was at Ernst & Young, I was at BT, and Gregor was at Procter & Gamble. So you're not going to give up those careers that you've worked so hard for on a passing idea for a spandex suit. So that was the original plan, was it just for it to be a side hustle, but then we were so successful through that first year, and we then got a view of how big the fancy dress industry is and the opportunity within that's when we quit our jobs and went
let's go to that then, because that's fascinating. You are all in, very good jobs.
Yep.
You've worked hard to get into those companies and those positions. Then the conversation goes with those closest to you. We're going to quit our jobs and we're going to sell spandex morph suits. What was the reaction? Majority from close friends and family.
It was the reaction was to caution us. I think would be putting a subtle point on it. Yeah, I mean, obviously that's not what people thought we should do, but we turned over £1 million running this as a part-time business in the first year, and our run rate when we gave up our jobs was towards £4 million. So we thought there was something worth chasing. And we probably didn't think we were going to be in it for as long as we have been at that point. And in fact, I think all three of us were given sabbaticals so we could come back after we'd maximised that opportunity. But then once we got into the fancy dress industry and we found all the opportunity there was there, we stayed on and continued following that entrepreneurial path.
So £1 million to £4 million, is that right?
So I think we went 1 million, 4 million, 11 million.
Jeez.
Because it went so crazy. And we can talk about how the market, we made some good decisions to make that happen, but we had the right product at the right time.
So let's talk about that. I mean, that is there's growth, there's fast growth,
Yep.
fast growth, and then there is absolutely
Crazy
off-the-scale
growth.
Crazy growth. That's a really good term for it. What was it like going through crazy growth? What was that experience like? Was it great, or was it great and shit as well? What was it?
No, those first 3 years were great. And actually, if you break it right back down to the beginning, when we got started, we'd only bought 200 costumes because that I think we each invested £1,000. We spent 2,000 on stock and 1,000 on a website, and it was a pretty terrible website. But actually, if you post-rationalize some of this, having a terrible website back then, when standards weren't as high and Shopify wasn't around to make it easy, that was a good barrier. If people really wanted your product, they'd fight their way through your terrible website. So those first 200, I think we sold them in about 10 days, and then we pooled all of our life savings, which weren't much at that point in our late 20s. And we bought 2,000 MorphSuits, and then when they came in, they sold very quickly. And then because we were able to make good margin on this and reinvest it in stock. The third batch came in, I can't remember exactly how much it was, but it was actually in October at that point. And they went back on the website, having been everything out of stock. And I remember they went on at 4:30, and we sold £5,000 that night, and we sold £35,000 the next day. And that's when we were like, wow.
That's like hashtag living the dream.
Absolutely. I mean,
that
35,000 was probably around our annual salary at that point. We sold it in one day. And it was so unexpected that it was just an amazing feeling.
I imagine this lovely picture of you guys just like smiling from ear to ear, high-fiving.
Yeah.
You're thinking, we've done it.
I just couldn't believe
smashed it.
Because I think we got an email every time the website sold something, and my inbox was just like, and it was unbelievable. So,
what a great experience that would have been.
Tremendous. And then, of course, Halloween was a part of that. Because that shows how naive we were at that point. We hadn't really thought that Halloween would be a big driver of sales for this, because it wasn't a skeleton, it wasn't scary, etc. And then the sales, not quite to that level, but they stayed high, and we kept on growing and growing. And
for how long?
Well, for the rest of that year on our way. I can't remember the exact how it changed through that year, but we obviously went towards £1 million in that first year. And at that point, we thought, let's quit our jobs and focus on this full time and see how fast we can really grow it. And then the next year, again, that was just easy growth. What were we doing? We were moving it. So we're in the UK. I suppose I could take back to the marketing that we were using to drive the business.
Yeah, that'd be interesting.
Because I think a lot of businesses that are successful have one or two really good ideas. You may not know them at the time, but when you look back, you can work out what it was that you did right. And one of them was no one knew what to call these spandex suits that we were wearing. And we didn't think, we had this consumer insight, because we're marketing guys, we had this consumer insight that boys don't like to go up to other boys because I really like what you're wearing. Where did you buy that? So if 20 people were doing that, there's probably 200 people who wanted to know, but they are not going up to you to say, I really like your jeans. Which shop did you get them from? Yeah. So we wrote morphsuits.com on the bum of everyone. So everyone we sold, and they were so visually striking, became a walking advert. So that's really powered our growth. Brilliant. And was underlying viral. And the other part of it...
And sorry, could you tell that it was causing the surge to your website because of that?
You couldn't tell right away, but even on the first day when we wore them, when we got the first samples out at a sevens tournament in London, and the 7 of us put them on after we played. So it was the right target audience, people who like to dress up, people who like to have fun. We could see people taking photos. I'm not even sure back in 2009 if everyone had camera phones. I think they did. But you could see people taking photos of your bum to get the web address.
Really?
So you knew, or you had a good hunch that was happening whenever you sold one. So the more we sold, the more the company grew. And then we backed that up with, in the early days of Facebook, we had another good insight that we don't know when you need a costume. Because if I offer you a costume now, if you don't have a party the next couple of weeks, you're unlikely to want to buy one. So what we had to do was create a model where you would stay aware of us, and when you have an occasion, because most people would have an occasion within a year or whatever, we're top of mind, and you come and purchase from us. So we recruited fans, as you could do in those days on Facebook, and put £3 from every product we sold back into the marketing budget, and optimized against how cheaply we could acquire a fan. And then we could talk to you, because you could talk to your fans for free in those days, and we could stay top of mind. So when you had an occasion, you would purchase from us. And we built our fan following up to over 1 million following that. So taking that £3 from every sale as an investment into the future.
So how many years was it then? Because, it's always, we were having a cup of tea upstairs, and you were chatting, and you were saying, it was great. And then, like many businesses, you then hit not so great moments.
Yeah.
When did you hit like a moment that was then all of a sudden, okay, this is getting challenging?
So we had a third year of really strong growth because we went to this trade show in America, again, completely naively. And we get there and we said we paid for one of those services where you can send an email to everyone attending. This was a Halloween costume show in Houston back then. And we didn't get that many replies, but we got 4 or 5 from this company called Party City that we'd never really even heard of.
Yep.
And we started Googling Party City, and then they've got 900 stores. In the UK, nobody has more than 3 costume stores. And 900 stores. And they wanted to have a meeting with us in advance. And so we met up with their whole leadership team, and they sat us down, and they said, we really like what you're doing. We haven't seen anything like this. We'd like you to go exclusive with us. And we will guarantee we buy 250,000 units this year and 350,000 units next year. And we were like...
So you're thinking...
And we're keeping a straight face as best we can.
Yeah.
Because we had a little bit of experience with dealing with the UK grocers, and so we understood some of the dynamics and how you don't want all your eggs in one basket, but we also understood that this was going to 10x our business in terms of units if we could get this right. So... We took it away. We took some time to go and think about it, but ultimately we signed up to that, but we were allowed to keep the website and we were allowed to sell to smaller retailers.
With so many products, all of a sudden there was a quick, the pandemic hit, and then all of a sudden people were like, well, actually, this is, business is doing okay. Business is doing really well.
Yeah.
People aren't just going to buy a load of morph costumes to wear around the house when they can't go out, are they?
Correct.
So there would have been limited offshoot, growth spurts or hope, I guess, for quite a while.
Us and travel were the ones who did not have the good e-commerce boom through the pandemic, because obviously we were a social product, and if you're not socializing, people don't want it. But we were saved by a couple of factors. So it came back to, the US came back to only about 5% down, partly because obviously they didn't have as strict restrictions, and partly because of the cultural resonance of Halloween. So Halloween is so important to the Americans. They bought costumes. Nothing cancels. Even if they just wore it around the house and took pictures for Instagram, they still wore it.
Really?
Yeah. But even the UK, it was kids at home, so kids needed toys, and kids' costumes can be toys, for imaginative play. And also people just doing silly things, like video stunts during the pandemic.
There were loads of those.
We saw stuff. So actually, your UK and European markets came back to about 50% down. And so combining those two things and being pretty rigorous with our cash controls, we managed to get through it.
Surprises me then. So actually then, you did find that quite quickly, sales were starting to pick up.
Yep.
So 85% literally as things were starting to batten down, but then, things started to grow again.
Within a week or two. Yeah, not growing, but they got back to it. They came back from 85%.
I see what you mean, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they stabilised at a down level.
Okay.
But it was better than we thought it was going to be after those initial few days.
Do you think having gone through the really tough times was enabled you to deal with I think you said it earlier, helped you deal with a steady thinking, methodical, pragmatic way through that? Do you think that helped?
100%.
It was the making of helping you get through a tough year.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm a big believer in all of those things. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Yeah.
And if you can survive long enough, that will pay off, because we were ready to make fast decisions and rational decisions in a way that we wouldn't have been if we hadn't gone through that in the past.
So now getting to the really exciting stuff. Over the past 3 years, the business has gone to another level, hasn't it?
Yep.
It's gone to, it's surpassed by far any other level that you've been at before.
Yep.
What has caused that?
So part of it has its roots in the pandemic. Again, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, because once we realized we were going to survive, we actually had people on furlough, but then we brought them back. And we just used that time to knuckle down and get better at what we needed to get better and to get really deep into the detail of everything, of our factories, of our logistics, of the marketing strategies on Amazon, of the product, roll out more and more products. And so when demand came back at the end of the pandemic, we were ready and much further ahead than we had been before. So that allowed us to really jump forward. And at that point, we had a button-down, rational, scalable plan that we've just continued to execute faster and faster and faster through the years coming out of that.
And what about the American market? Is that something that's been growing and growing and growing as well?
Yeah, absolutely, because the American market is huge. 1 in 3 Americans dress up, and there's 350 million of them. So 1 in 3 dress up for Halloween.
Really, they all have to dress up?
For Halloween.
For Halloween. Okay.
There's a less of a year-round proportional market, but it's still a huge market anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you're selling, there's 110 million costumes get sold at Halloween. So there's plenty of space for us to grow into that.
You said at the beginning, I said MorphSuits, but it's actually Morph Costumes. Was that, you're talking about the inflatables, was that the start of Morph Costumes, or has the costumes gone to another level over the past 2-3 years?
Absolutely. So as we I guess defined and better understood our business model, we'd done it on MorphSuits, we'd done it on inflatables, and then we started to develop just generic costumes ourselves. And what surprised us and was a big learning is just the volumes in the standard costumes, the witches, the zombies, the skeletons. So even though we thought we'd been really successful in our niches, just having a successful witch, you sell thousands and thousands of units of that.
Really?
If you know how to market it. Yeah, so moving into the mainstream has been a big changer for the business.
Right.
And we did a lot of that through an acquisition we made. Once we realized we needed more products, we acquired a company who had a great book of products, but we're only distributing in the UK.
Okay.
So we knew we could acquire them and then push them out through our distribution channels.
Okay.
And that got us into mainstream costumes. We're looking to acquire more now to increase our range, and we've built out a team, which we did through the pandemic and afterwards, that is churning out 250 of our own designs every year and continuing to accelerate that.
What have you found? So many companies want to crack America.
Yep.
I'm not saying because I wouldn't. There's so much humility with entrepreneurs. I wouldn't want to say you've cracked America, because you go, we haven't cracked America, I'm sure, but doing very well in America. What are some of the key things to make a pursuit of the American market successful?
It's a cliche, but a lot of cliches have a truth in them. It is the same with a few nuanced differences.
Okay.
And they don't occur in every area, but they do occur in some areas. So when you're dealing with major retailers in the UK, it's all about efficiency. Your Tesco's, your Asda's, etc. They would never accept an agent standing in between and taking a commission. Whereas actually, to get into a large retailer in the US, you will probably need an agent, someone who has a connection with the buyer, who takes a commission and helps you to some extent, but not a huge extent. And we pushed back against that for a while because this is ridiculous. We've been trained by Procter & Gamble to do sales. We do not need someone else to do that. But unless you do it, unless you fall in line with the cultural norms, you're not with all retailers, but with some, you're going to struggle.
Really?
So it's little things like that.
Yeah.
Everything else is the same.
Yeah.
But little things like that you can't quite work out, that you wouldn't expect.
Yeah. So someone in last year's list said something really interesting, which is also with Americans, especially when it comes to, right, this is what we need. The British way can be, okay, well, let's really think about if we can deliver that. Whereas the American way is, of course we can, and then you have to go, can we actually do that? And is it a case of, this is what we want? Yeah, of course we can do it.
Whether they say that to us, yes. I mean, you have to watch out for the American salesman.
Okay.
I mean, that's one of the learnings we've had. We had a guy who can remain nameless who was working in our business, and when we started the year with him, we were setting out his targets, etc. And we were trying to set his targets at, let's say, $250,000. And he said to us in that meeting, if I can't do $1 million this year, there's no point being here. He sold $10,000 that year.
Really?
Yeah, that's all he sold. And we've been burned a few times by American salespeople, both selling to us, over-promising and under-delivering, and us hiring American salespeople. Yeah. So there is a little bit of that. The never saying no thing is, I think that's more common in China.
Really?
The face saving, you push and they say yes, even though there is no way. They know they can't do it.
Really?
And they don't tell you until you find out. So that's been a big learning on the manufacturing side. Absolutely.
So you'd mentioned earlier about explaining to investors, I think you'd said. Obviously, investors are just as important as the co-founders, really, because when they come in, they're really part of the family.
Yep.
And so it can be a great experience or a terrible experience. Who did you choose to be your investors, and why, and how's that experience been?
So we chose the Business Growth Fund, who are a UK mid-market private equity firm. And the reasons why we chose them, we did a process at the beginning. And to be honest, we were a strange product. A lot of people were going to want to invest in spandex, despite our numbers being amazing. We talked about it was 1 million, 4 million, 10 million. It was in that gap between nearly 10 million at that point. So we had tremendous numbers, but still most of the traditional private equity community weren't interested in investing. But the BGF were willing to back us as founders. So we took them on at that point, and they were a minority investor, and the main reason we took them on was to get a bit of capital to accelerate our growth, and also for them to help us professionalize the business, because we were still young and relatively inexperienced, certainly of running our own business. We'd had responsible jobs within a corporate structure, but we had never been on the board of any of the companies. We didn't know how to do any of that sort of stuff. And then that was their area of expertise. And they brought on an excellent chairman who was a guy who'd been on the board of Unilever called Ralph Kugler, who helped us with that process. And no, they've been really, really good. So their mantra is they're not private equity. They won't like me calling that. They're long-term patient investors.
Such a dirty word, isn't it?
I don't actually think it is. I think they do a lot of good in some areas.
I mean, like private equity word, it can be. Yeah,
it can be, exactly.
Can
well,
be,
it's an emotive word. Some people, it can be really helpful, but some people don't like it, and some people will have had really good experiences with it. But yeah, they want to differentiate themselves from that market, and they call themselves patient capital.
Yeah.
And to be completely fair to them, they're still investors now. We have really tested that patience because they invested at that 10, 11 million peak. They were with us through the tough times when we lost $1 million. And of course, their investment would have been miles underwater.
Yeah.
But they've stuck with us, and now we've got the numbers that are 30 million and should be way past 30 million next year or this year. So their patience will be rewarded, but not all investment firms would have shown that patience, and it could have been a very different outcome. So,
big shout to the BGF then.
I have a lot of respect for how they have helped us through that process.
Yeah, that sounds like that's. Go on, you're flirting me with this number. What do you think you could be on track to make at the end of this year?
Our target is 45, and we're ahead.
Really?
We're ahead of that.
Are you really?
Yeah.
Do you know, it does make me smile because it excites me to hear this. You know, it's why we create the Growth 100. Funny enough, growth excites us. It's just because what you go through, what you have to. As you've just gone and explained, it's such a cliche, the iceberg, but there's a lot of really horrendous times that go below the success, isn't there?
Absolutely.
It's just that's just the thing that you see, but actually below it, it's tough.
There are so many ups and downs, but I think if you want to do it, you've got to be ready for that, and you've got to try and minimise the impact of the hard times and really enjoy when it's going well.
Yeah.
There are very few better feelings than when your company is going well as a result of yours and the team's hard work.
Yeah.
Because you really think, well, we have achieved this together, and like. It feels great. And I remember that time when the first orders came in, we did 5,000 in an evening. That time when we met Party City, when we got through the pandemic, all those positive things, but balanced by the negative things of when the first day of the pandemic or when we had to make the people redundant, they were really, really tough. But,
someone gave some great advice, which is, when you're thinking about starting on this journey of lunacy.
Yes.
Because you've got to be a bit of a lunatic, haven't you, to really go for this. But you just got to be prepared to know that this will affect every part of your life, your family, your friends, everything, because it is so deeply personal, isn't it? When you start a business, and it feels to me that would be very much the case with you when it's going, when it's bad. I bet it was really hard to at times be present with other people and what have you. Not easy.
No, not easy at all.
So when it's going great, there is no better feeling.
Absolutely, and you've earned that reward.
You've earned it.
Yeah, you have. Because ultimately, when you talk about the lunacy of a journey, it is. You've got to enjoy the journey because we're getting to now a reasonable point where it's going to be successful, but it's still not a mega success. Everyone thinks of Facebook or Google. I'm going to fill that. I'm going to become a billionaire because they're the ones that are in the press. Getting to this level is super hard, and we've been very fortunate to get to this level, whereas most businesses will be far below that, and you'll probably have more tough times than good times. So you've got to be ready for that if you want to get into this.
You're still a whippersnapper. You're in your 40s, right?
44 a week ago.
Okay, well there you go.
You're very kind.
So obviously through the peaks and troughs of any business, squeaky bum moments, as some people call them, are an experience. A tough experience. Every time that you've been through that experience, I guess there's been some key learnings that every single time have been able to help you evolve and go to the next level of the business, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly right. And some of it is conscious learnings that you hold close to you, and some of it is subconscious that comes through the experiences you've had and the way you react to things. So, I mean, we've talked about some of them. For example, you avoid more problems because you're better at what you do. So one of the ones for me, I was over-optimistic in the past.
Really?
Now I'm much more data-driven. I take challenge much better from other people in the team to say that this probably isn't the best idea, and therefore you don't go down the route, so you have less squeaky bum moments because you make better decisions further back in the path.
That's interesting. So,
Yeah.
so when people challenge, really embrace that.
Yeah.
Encourage it. Yeah, challenge me, right? Because I might be wrong.
And it's difficult because I don't like it.
No.
And I've had to learn to like it. And I know the members of the team that play that role, because you need a balance of optimists.
Yep.
And you need a balance of realists or even pessimists who can point out the problems. And then you blend that together and you get a more likely to be successful plan.
Yeah.
Whereas in the past, because of the confidence and success at the beginning, I was far too far on the optimism bias.
Really?
And that's some of the problems why we kept going for 3 years while we were losing money, because this will work, but it's never really going to work.
Because it did work.
Yeah, and I wasn't as good at listening. So
Yeah.
like I say, you avoid more of them, and then when squeaky bum things inevitably happen because of external factors like a pandemic or supplier problems or other things that are going to happen, you have a better toolkit to answer them more effectively. So in the pandemic, we battened down the hatches much more quickly, so that you can conserve cash to give yourself space to do things.
Yeah.
So there are lots of examples like that.
Okay, now let's just, you're a whippersnapper, only in your 40s, right?
Yep.
Started this in your early 30s?
Yeah, on my 30th birthday.
30th
launched.
birthday.
Yeah.
30th birthday. So I guess, is there an end? I mean, I hate asking the question, but we have to ask it because it's interesting. Is there an end goal? For you, is it no, we'll keep on going and going and going? Or when you get investment, there has to be an end goal at some point, right?
Yeah, and we've always been pragmatic about that we at some point would like an exit, because this is a stock-based business. So growing as fast as this, it hoovers up a lot of cash to invest in stock. And at some point, you need a return on the investment that you've made. Because obviously one of the key lessons of anyone who's been in a stock-based business for a while is there's a big difference between profit and cash. And the free cash. And so we're making very nice profits, but that's all going back in the business.
Yeah, got it.
And again, we're pragmatic. We do this to make money.
Yeah.
We enjoy the journey while we're on it, but a business is there to create value. So at some point we would like to exit it, but we're enjoying it. There's tons of potential at the moment, so we can take our time to find the right point to do that.
Because you have investors that
because I have investors who are patient capital, and it's another example of how they make that possible.
Just finally, in terms of just the dynamic between the three of you, your brother, a great friend. Your brother's also a great friend, but I'm talking about Gregor as well as not your brother, friend. How have you managed to, as a trio, really kind of keep the glue and gel together during the good times and the bad times?
So I think the first point is we've always had a feeling that we'd rather the business fail than that we didn't have a good relationship. So that has been really important to us. Yeah, because you see too many of them that fall apart because it's tiny little businesses and someone's had a good year in sales and says, I deserve more of the shareholding than that, or someone's made a mistake and they change that and it all falls to bits. So we've all had great successes and we've all made terrible mistakes. But we never talk about someone else getting a different share or changing that. We just understand that everyone is pulling in the same direction and we're doing our best and we're going to continue doing this. And if that's a given, that takes a lot of the stress out of it. And then the second point around it is we've got a good blend of skills. So we have a different point. Gregor is one of the best people you'll ever find. Ali's great at detail, and I'm good at the sort of the bigger thinking and the setting the direction.
So
we work together
really.
there. Yeah, and then we try and approach the arguments just on their merits. And again, there's no offences taken if. I think 3 is a good number for this.
Yeah.
Because if you've got 1, I see people and just no one else cares. I mean, not even your partner will care to the same level as you care. So you can get quite insular and you can make bad decisions because you've got no one to bounce them off. If you're a single founder, and respect to people who do that successfully. I know there's a lot of them.
It's nuts how they do it. It's not on their own.
Exactly. Huge respect.
Yeah.
But I don't know how they do it. And 2 can be quite hard because it's a bit. There's no one you can go off to who gives a bit of external perspective.
Yeah.
And so with 3 of us taking sides on the merits of the decision rather than any sort of familiar or friendship bonds, that's been really powerful because 2 of us can be really arguing vehemently, and if it gets a bit hot, you can go and have a moan to the other one. God, he's such a dick, and the other one goes, no, he's all right. He's just seeing it from this point of view, and it sort of cools it down.
Yeah.
Or you've got 2 against 1, and the 2 against 1 because of the merits. You have a good, robust discussion, but ultimately there is a way forward rather than two people just falling out.
Yeah.
So I'm really pleased that
The dynamic sounds great.
the
from that
dynamics
point of
worked well, on skill set and on just the type of people that they are.
So just adding to that then, with the three of you, is there, when it comes to that ultimate decision making, is there someone that has the kind of that, for want of a better word, the power to almost cast that final all-important vote, or do you somehow find a way to always navigate that through the three of you?
So when we took investment, we had to choose a CEO,
Okay.
and actually, I was going to push back on that, but the other two, because we wanted to keep it equal, but the other two said, no, that's fine, you can be the CEO, because that was better suited to what I was interested in than what they were interested in.
Yeah.
However, I would try very hard, and I don't think I ever have used a CEO vote or veto on anything.
Really?
We want to decide together.
Okay.
And I think that has a lot of merits because you work through the argument to come to an agreement.
It's kind of what you were saying before, isn't
Yeah,
it?
exactly. And actually, we to take it further, there's not just the three founders of us, there's 6 of us on the exec team, and we've now got a good second level team of managers as well. But certainly the exec team and our finance director, who was our second or third hire, is a really strong part of that decision-making process now.
Yeah. And your second brother is also in the business, isn't he?
He's in the business as well, yeah.
Yeah. So you just mentioned the fact that you're also building like the second layer of management as well, middle management, whatever you call it,
Yep.
but the layer below the top management, which is obviously so important for the success of and the longevity of a business as it goes to the next level. How do you motivate people in that position? And secondly, how do you make sure that everybody is really kind of committed towards that and on the same journey?
So it can be quite a challenge keeping a team motivated when you've hired driven people into a small business, because if you're in a FTSE 100 company, there's always room for promotion because there's always going to be a gap somewhere above you until you get to the very, very top. Yeah. In a smaller business, that isn't the case. So how do you hang on to talented people? So this is something we've thought about quite a lot. And when we put our goals down, we have financial goals, but the sort of subtext to the goals is we want to keep growing a bigger business so that we can create more opportunities for all of us.
Great.
Because that's the only way we will keep these people. And we have to keep growing at the pace we are growing at the moment to give space for these talented people to have more responsibility, to build teams themselves, to get paid more, because ultimately they are interested in that, of course they are. And that's our bargain with them. And when we can't deliver that, we are quite happy for people to leave. We don't see it as an insult. If we haven't been successful in creating a big enough business for them to grow into, then they've got to go and fulfill their potential.
And I guess you're thinking with that is because you are so committed to helping people find that next level, right?
Yeah.
That's why you don't take it personally, because you're so driven to do that. If it doesn't happen, it's we've probably tried everything we can to make it happen.
Yeah, we put ourselves in their shoes. They have no obligation to wait around for us to create a big enough job for them.
Yeah.
We will always do our best to keep good people, but if ultimately it doesn't work for the company, and there's something better they could be doing with their time, then it's going to be better for everyone if they go and do that.
Final question. You talked about the other hustles that you've had, and it might be related to that, or it might be related to what you've done now. But what is your biggest business fuck up? What did you learn from it?
I mean, it was all part of that period between 2012 and 2015. There wasn't one. It was just a complete lack of a coherent vision of where we were going, and keeping on ploughing on with that and hiring more people into this lack of a plan.
Yeah.
And all of those little mistakes just compounded on it.
I'm sure there'll be other mistakes because no one ever stops making mistakes, but that tunnel vision on always having a plan would be something that's pivotal to how you do business, right?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I will not make that long-term slow motion car crash of a mistake ever again, because I've learned from that.
Fail cheaply, fail fast.
I make mistakes all the time. Part of what we do is we try new things. We try new advertising strategies. We'll try new agencies if someone's got a decent angle, and you go through it and you go through a smell test. Is there a chance that this could really transform the business?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll have a go at it.
Yeah.
But quite often we'll lose 20 grand, 50 grand trying it, lose some time on it as well. But it could have added X million if it had worked as the plan would work.
Yeah.
And you can do as much business modeling and as much on paper work as you want. And we've all seen this through investment decks, and everything looks perfect, team looks perfect. But until the rubber hits the road, you're never 100% sure. All you can do is reduce your risk of getting it wrong.
Yeah. Fraser, I've loved talking to you. Thank you so much for sharing the story. There's so many lessons that have come from that. But I think most importantly, what is just so exciting is the journey that you've been on, but it's not even hit really anywhere near the end goal at the moment, hasn't it? There's still a lot to go, and it looks like you're someone who's very excited by what's still to come.
Yeah.
and enjoying being on the journey. As you say, you've got to take it in and enjoy it, right? So best of luck with everything. Can't wait to see where the business goes, and it's great to have you on the Growth 100 this year.
Thank you very much for having us. It's been really great to be here.
Cheers, thank you.
Thanks.